Welcome to Heaping Spoonful, a twice-monthly conversation with restaurateurs, chefs, growers, and others who have helped generate the legends associated with eateries across the Mid-South. The team at Benny Keith is proud to sponsor this adventure with the goal of preserving the stories that have helped cultivate an amazing food scene across the Mid-South. So kick back and enjoy a Heaping Spoonful.
Everybody out there in podcast land, it is Heaping Spoonful. It's Tuesday, so it's either the first or the third Tuesday of every month. We are here in Benny Keith Studios, given by Rusty Mathis, the amazing general manager over here at Benny Keith. And
shout out Rusty.
Yes, you gotta give a shout out to Rusty. Always have to give a shout out to Rusty and Rob Nelson. You know, we'll talk about Rob in a little bit, but thank you, Rob, for the introduction. Yeah, for sure. Rob is the one that makes us sound good, so we always have to thank Rob.
Love you, Rob.
Yeah, yes, I love Rob too. Rob and I we're building this amazing relationship right now, which is basically just him putting up with me. Yeah.
I have several of those relationships.
Yeah. So it's funny how today came about. So today, sitting across the table from me is Kevin Doroski.
Morning, everybody.
Kevin. So Kevin, if you don't know Kevin has an extensive career, but right now Kevin is the chef and owner. Well, more than chef, but let's say chef and owner at Draft and Table, right in Dogtown, right where I'm at over there.
Right on the corner.
Right on the corner. Great addition to the neighborhood, but it was really funny. And I told you, like, I wanted to tell this story because, so it's actually kind of funny. And I usually don't get nervous when it comes to stuff like that. But Rusty came in with Kelly Bass to Brood for lunch. Man, this is like, I don't know, 6-8 weeks ago. It's a while ago. And when we talked about me doing the podcast, he said, listen, like, you know, at first you're going to bring some people in. Like, we already have some people that I know you're going to bring in. You're going to interview. We're going to tell their story and stuff like that. But what we really like to do is get our sales team involved and say, like, hey, listen, like, this guy that I rep for, like, has got a really cool story. And them, like, email you and say, Bray, check this guy out, you know, that type of thing. So I'm, like, scheduling. And so back to what I was saying. So Rusty and Kelly are in, and Shane, the chef Shane, told me, he was like, hey, we have a sales meeting on Friday, you know? They were joking with me because the first 2 times I came in here was actually when Shane was cooking for the staff. They're like, you're just coming in for lunch, you fat kid, you know, whatever. And I was like, no, I swear to God, it's not that. So, so he was joking with me. He's like, hey, we have, like, our quarterly sales meeting. So, like, all the sales reps will be here. And I'm like, oh, cool. Well, I'll come in for lunch, you know? So I said to Rusty, I said, hey, don't forget to say something to the sales reps about the podcast, you know? And he was like, I got a better idea, Bray. What are you doing tomorrow? Why don't you come in and talk to the sales team? And I was like, sounds like a great idea, Rusty.
I've got nothing but time, but
yeah,
let's do this.
So anyway, came in at the podium. I was the first person that he introduced. And he was like, hey, we're going to get this out of the way. This is Brian McFadden. He's taking over, you know, Heaping Spoonful, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, we did this big push with the sales team and everything like that. And then Yvette, she texted me. And basically, you know how you can, like, kind of tell somebody's tone on, like, a text? And she was like, aren't you friends with Kevin Doroski? Like, maybe hit Kevin up because Kevin wants to do the podcast. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I should hit Kevin up.
Well, you and I were talking about it, you know, just hanging out at, you know, you popped into Draft and Table and you were telling me about everything that's going on. And you're like, I'm doing this. I was like, that sounds really cool. It never even occurred to me, like, maybe I should show up and talk. You know, we never even considered that. But then my sales rep, Garrett, shout out Garrett, she's amazing. But she was like, hey, you know, we're doing this podcast thing now, and I think you should go on there. And I was like, with Brian? Yeah, he told me about that. She's like, well, I'm going to send an email and make sure that you get in there. I was like, I could just shoot him a text.
Yeah, I'll just text the guy.
I'm going to see him, you know, in the next couple of days anyway.
He's walking in the door right now. He drinks Tanqueray. Well, man, like you, just like so many other people, This is funny. I mean, we've sat and talked like so many times. You know, our kids have hung out. You know, I mean, we've had so many conversations. But I mean, you have a past like so many other chefs and restaurateurs, you know, in the business, and you know we get where we're at, you know, for a reason. And there's a long, usually rocky road, you know, before we get there.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, and that's what we want to talk about. We want to talk about your road. Where did you come up?
So mostly around Arkansas. I mean, Arkansas is home for me. I was born in Belgium. My dad was in the military, so I didn't spend a whole lot of time over there. But it's always a cool, like, yeah, I was born in Belgium.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't remember any of it. But we moved to Arkansas when I was about 2, and I didn't start talking until I was about 3 because I didn't know whether I was supposed to answer in French or in English.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So I mean, but yeah, just growing up in Arkansas, mostly around the Pettigene area. My grandma owned a motel up on top of there, so we were always somewhere kind of within the vicinity of that.
Okay.
We moved to Tennessee for a while. We moved to Alabama for a while, but I mean, something about every time I try to get away from Arkansas, like I always slide right back. You know, it's just there's like some gravitational pull. So Arkansas is home. I love the people here. I love everything about this place. It's beautiful. It's a very well-kept secret from the rest of the world.
It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the natural state for a reason.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
But every time we have to put somebody on national TV, I feel like we scout for like the most podunk looking person with no shoes on. We're like, yeah, you go out there and talk about it so that people think we're all dumb.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
so it just kind of...
Because we don't want them coming here.
We don't want them coming.
This is for us.
Exactly. You know, it's not overcrowded. The state, you know, everybody's got plenty of space. Even, you know, here in Little Rock in the city, like it's so sprawling, you know, but it's still, you never really get that terrible traffic or that, you know, just that feel like, you know, you're in a big city and you don't matter. You know, it's still small enough that you still feel really good about it.
When my buddies, you met them when John and Kevin were in town, like we're about to get on 40, and he was like, man, didn't they say like 40's all backed up and there's traffic? I was like, it's going to be fine. Don't worry about it.
It's not your kind of traffic.
It's not that kind of traffic.
You'll be mildly inconvenienced.
Yeah, it's not going to be bad. It's not going to be bad. But yeah, it's small. Still, you know, everybody's got plenty of room. Everybody knows each other. It's kind of one of those things too, you know?
Yeah.
So, all right. So you were in, so back to Arkansas. All right. So you were Tennessee, Alabama. When did you get back to Arkansas?
So mostly as I was a kid was the Tennessee and Alabama thing. So let's say probably around like 3rd grade, we were like established, like this is where we're going to be. Mm-hmm. My mom decided while raising 4 kids by herself to go to college. So we moved to Russellville whenever I was in the 4th grade. And it was great. You know, it was based, you know, after living in the small towns, like this was like the first like big town, like, whoa, we can like order pizza and they can deliver it, you know, like, so from 4th grade and then 5th grade moved to Oregon with my dad for a year. And then, you know, came back in the 6th grade and just like a clean slate, didn't even hardly know anybody again.
Oh, wow.
So had to rebuild that back up. But, my mom was always a terrific cook. And I mean, even with all of us kids, she always made sure that it wasn't just, you know, like mac and cheese and tacos and hot dogs all the time. You know, she would always make sure that she put something together that was, you know, nutritious and good enough for all of us, all the food groups balanced, all that.
Oh, yeah.
But it was something, you know, as a kid, you take for granted. You know, it's always there, so you don't think it's special, you know. Yeah. But then whenever I moved out and was just, you know, in a house with 2 other guys and we're living off of Taco John's and Wendy's, it was just like, man, I don't feel right. Like something's missing. So, I mean, you know, a lot of chefs have those stories, you know, where they grew up, their grandma taught them how to make empanadas at, you know, 4 years old, you know, or they grew up cooking, always had a passion for it, always good at it. I didn't have that. Like, I didn't figure out what the hell cooking was until I was like 18 years old. And it was out of necessity because I was like, there's something missing in my life. Like there's a puzzle piece that's not in place right now. And it was food.
Hell yeah.
So,
now, did you take like some of the stuff that your mom used to cook and you're like, I could do this? Like, I always thought mom always needed like a little bit more salt in this or something. Like, you just take like your mom's stuff and then make it your own?
There was a little bit of that, but I mean, you know as well as I do, when you get opened up to a new world of opportunity, like you're expanding your palate. You're reaching out for other things that you haven't heard of, you know, or you haven't tried yet. So there was mostly more of that. That's when people ask you what your favorite thing to cook is, like, what do you say? something new, you know, like
usually, yeah, it's like something like I saw a recipe online. I'm not actually going to use that recipe, but I like the idea, like the base of it, and I think I'm going to do this with it.
exactly. Yeah. So it was a lot of exploration back in those days, and it was, you know, we're still in Russellville, we're still small town, you know, so it's not like you're getting too fancy with it. You have to make sure that it's still like within the comfort zone of your audience, you know? Or at the time it was my drunk buddies, you know.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
a lot of heavy on the meat and potatoes back then.
Oh yeah, not much vegetable. Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, there the rabbit ragu that we have on the menu. We grew up eating rabbit.
Hell yeah.
You know, raised them in the yard and all of that. So that was a risk putting it on the menu because I didn't know how it was going to sell, but I knew that I loved it.
Yeah.
So I just, you know, I took what my mom was doing and kind of put my own flair onto it, took some of the Italian training that I had and put it together in an actual dish. So now it's like a representation of all of those memories combined.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's funny. I can't tell you the name of this club back home because it's inappropriate. I'm not even going to say it, but it's a hunting club. Like it's a hunting club back home, and believe it or not, they have them outside of Philadelphia. It's a hunting club, and that was the first time I ever had rabbit. I don't know. I was a teenager or something like that, and I was like, I see these things all the time, but I've never eaten a rabbit before. Like, rabbit is so good.
Yeah, it is.
It's so good.
Absolutely.
And it wasn't like a big like staple back home unless you knew about it. You know, it's kind of one of those things, you know?
It's not something you can cook when you have a friend over because they're going to be like, wait, what? No, they're cute and fluffy. And you're like, no, man. Like, they're
Really?
Yeah, they're destroying your gardens. Like, they need to go.
Yeah. But so what do you do with the rabbit? Do you braise it? Do you sous vide it? What do you?
I do braise it. We've gone through a couple of different cuts, but my original idea for this dish was to do the full-on like bone-in rabbit and then quarter it and braise it. But then Andrew was like, hey, man, we got these rabbit tenderloins. We've got these things called rabbit trimmings. And so we started using the trimmings. It was faster. It was delicious. Like there wasn't anything wrong with it. It just wasn't cooked bone-in. Gotcha. So we did that for a while until we ran the rabbit supplier out of those trimmings, and then it was like, okay, we're going to switch it up. And so now we're back to what my original idea was for the dish, and that bone being in the, like, I mean, it's not in the finished product, but in the cooking process just gives it so much more depth of flavor, and you get so many different parts from the rabbit that are incorporated, so it's just like you get like your light and dark meat.
Right.
It all just blends in so well, and it gets shredded up instead of just being, in these chunks, and it's 10 times better. I should always go with your gut on some of these things.
Yeah, for sure. Now, rabbit doesn't have a lot of fat to it. So, like, do you bard it at all? Like, do you put fat in it? Like, you put bacon in it or whatever? You know what I mean?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because, with the story of Lewis and Clark in Rabbit, like I'm not sure if that's what they died from, but they were trying to just live off of those because they're so easy to rapid produce while they're traveling, doing the exploration of America. Like they ate nothing but rabbit, and it made them sick because there is no fat in rabbit. Like your body has to have some of that if you're going to be ingesting meat. Just like whenever you make a salad, you got to have some sort of oil or fat in there, or else the greens aren't going to get activated. You're not going to get the healthy benefits out of it. So,
Right.
For us, our fat is butter. So we throw a little bit of butter and just touch some oil in the pan as well, just so that you get a higher smoke temp on the butter. It's not just burning up.
Right.
But that's all that we add to that. And then for your stock, you're going to mix up some different like demi-glace and chicken stock, so you get a little bit of fat from there, but really, like it's all about the butter with that rabbit. They are best friends.
Man, I actually have not had your rabbit ragu yet.
You have to. We're hand rolling that tagliatelle.
Man, you saw when I came into your place last week. I was like, I'll take the chicken parm sandwich. And you made this look, and you're like, we can do it for you. And I was like, oh, my God, what time is it? I was like, oh, shit, I forgot it's brunch. I was like, I'm that guy. I'm that jerk that's like, you have it any other time, blah, blah, blah.
Well, I mean, you're not that jerk because you understand, like, hey, man, we're not serving that right now, so maybe just order another drink and hang out, and we can make it happen for you. Like, that's never an issue, but it's the people that come in and then they get frustrated because that's not written in front of them. Like, well, we're going somewhere else. It's like, well, okay, but, I mean, there's tons of stuff on that menu that you might want to check out.
Just take a look at the menu.
Yeah, but, I mean, also, if you'd have just let us know that's what you wanted and said you were cool with waiting a couple minutes, typically we can make it happen.
I tell my servers too, I was like, listen, I didn't get in this business to say no. Okay. Like if I can do something for you, I'm going to do it. Like if I can do it, I'll do it. Okay. And my servers now and my bartenders, they know to a point, like if Brand said no, it really means that he can't do it. It's not that he doesn't want to do it. He's not being a jerk, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I think I've trained my kitchen staff that way too. If I'm not there, like, listen, if somebody comes in at night and they want something off the lunch menu, like at least let's have a conversation about it. Just don't say no, or you know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff.
I've struggled with that in every kitchen that I've worked in. If you're not standing right there and they go and ask somebody else and they get a no, and then you find out about it later, you're like, guys, like what the hell? Like, I mean, come on. You could have done that. Like you guys are chefs. Like, look.
This guy drove 20 miles to be here and we told him no.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, and at the end of the day, like whether you're on the kitchen line or you're behind the bar or you're serving, the ultimate goal is for those people to have a wonderful experience, and you don't want to get in the way of that. You know, like you just don't be in the habit of being like, no, we're not going to do that. Like, you know, just reach in, you know, think about how you would feel. You've been craving this damn sandwich.
Yeah.
You came all the way here with the one opportunity you had, and they're telling you can't have it. Like that's going to hurt your soul. So, I mean, just put yourself in their shoes and just remember at the end of the day, we want them to leave happy.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And yeah, no's not anything that anybody ever wants to hear. No. Sometimes you have to use it, but it's not a thing, you know? Don't make it a thing.
Well, I always tell the chefs too, like, as long as you're not sacrificing the integrity of the dish, like, we're not going to serve mid-rare chicken or anything like that. But if it's something that's quick and easy, or if it's something that you know you can do, just do it.
Just do it, yeah. So we're going to get back into a little bit more of, like, current dishes and everything like that, but... All right, so take me to like your first restaurant job, like your first like kitchen job.
I'd love to. So back to being young and cooking for my buddies and my family and just getting positive responses all the time. Like, wow, dude, you're really good at this. You know, you find confidence, you know, that you didn't have before. You're like, oh, I'm good at this. I can do this. Yeah. So they were opening up a new restaurant in Russellville, and it was a huge deal because Russellville's dry county, very much not like alcohol friendly unless you are.
Is it still?
It is still. You can't purchase like beer and stuff there. You got to drive 25 minutes to Blackwell and back, which I always made the comment. It's like, hey, you guys know you're putting people at risk because what do you think they're going to do on the way back? They're just going to be drinking. Yeah, so if they could just go to the gas station and get an 18-pack, then you might alleviate some of that, you know. But so they were opening up this new restaurant. They were putting a lot of money into it, and it was an old barbecue place that was in a gas station that was backed by the Frank Fletcher oil people. So they had money and they were doing a killing on this barbecue. So they wanted to open up the first like real bar and restaurant in the downtown area while they were kind of regentrifying it. Oh, wow. So it was Fat Daddy's Barbecue. Oh yeah. And they had a beautiful bar. It was the first place I'd ever heard of that had the lines chilled from the kegs of beer all the way to the tap.
Oh wow.
It was just, I mean, they were very innovative, very creative. They took this like terrible, dilapidated space and just completely redid it, and it was all brand new. But I had to do my training out at the gas station and learn how to do some of the smoking pit and how to put stuff together and all that stuff. And again, you're excelling, you know, like you get put in a position like that, and then they've realized they can count on you, and you're grinding because you got this newfound confidence. You know, it made sense to me. It made me feel great.
Hell yeah. Yeah. It's such a good feeling. So you're walking into like a new spot, and you know, you get all those good vibes, all those good feelings. You're surrounded by like shiny equipment and like people that are like just want to do the same thing as you. Like, you know, like-minded people that are just, you're all like kind of pushing each other. Like we're all here for the same reason.
Yeah, I mean, people from different backgrounds too. That, you know, they know stuff that you haven't learned yet, and then you're doing something well, so you can teach them. It's just this wonderful exchange of like techniques and stuff. It was mind-boggling to me, like how much I thought I knew about cooking, and then when you get into your first kitchen, you're like, oh wow, like I'm still learning so much. Like there is an endless supply of knowledge. Like you can be the best baker in the world and then still not know the first thing about barbecue. You know, like you got a like unlimited amount of things that you can learn. You're never going to master all of it. And that's what's the beautiful thing about cooking to me, is there's always going to be something out there you've never heard of, or if you've never tried, or something new and exciting.
And I always equate like cooking to like music. Like somebody's always doing something different. You always like have to be on your toes, and like there's so much to learn. You're never gonna get bored.
But yeah, and then the thing about food and music is there's nothing on this earth that can bring people together more than those two things. You know, I mean, how many fond memories do you have, childhood or elsewise, like that, where it's just around a table, you know, or when your friends are coming over, what are you going to do? You're going to throw together some, you know, finger foods, or, you know, the family's coming over for the holidays. It's all about the food. So not just from a professional standpoint, but just knowing how to cook and being able to put stuff together for the people that you love is the ultimate love language.
Yeah, for sure. So you're talking, like, so Fat Daddy's Barbecue, how long were you there for?
About 2 years. Started there within the first like 2 or 3 weeks. I had worked my way up to assistant kitchen manager just because I was killing it and I was reliable, and when I tell you I was working hard, I had no problem working hard. You know, it was just, that's what I needed to be doing. And then, you know, about a month or two after that, you're the kitchen manager, and then the next thing you know, they're handing you keys and saying, count the drawers at the end of the night, you know? So not only is it, you know, just this feeling like I'm killing it, I'm doing good, but like you're also seeing the results like right away. They're saying, hey, you're killing it. Like we need you to take on more responsibility. So I did that for a while, and then I get a phone call from a buddy of mine, and he's living here in Little Rock, and he's like, hey, I've got this opportunity. I don't know if you'd be interested, but I know you're doing your thing in the food game, but I know this restaurant, and they're actually looking for a chef. Well, I hadn't considered myself a chef at that point at all. I'm just a line cook. I'm just a kitchen manager, you know?
Right.
But he was like, if you come down here, I'll take you down there and we'll talk to the owners together. And, you know, he's like, and I think this would be a great opportunity for you. So I'm still living in Russellville, and I drive down to Little Rock, and we meet Eric Isaac for the first time.
Okay, yeah.
And he grabs himself a drink, and he sits, you know, he's on the other side of the bar, and he's just, you know, got you under the eyebrow, and he's like, so what do you like to do when you're not cooking? You know, just, you know, just not real personal, like, or I mean, not real professional questions, but more of just like trying to get a feel for you as a person.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one of the lessons I took away from him too, is just like, you know, don't just stick to where have you worked before? What are your skills? You know, just trying to figure out whether or not you can stand next to this guy for 9 hours, you know, in a limited space. Like that's
a thing too, man. Like I had some interviews this week, and like that word culture comes up so much, but I mean, every kitchen, every restaurant has a culture. And like, man, you could be the most badass cook in the world, dude, but if I can't stand you, man, like we're going to be spending a lot of time together, man.
Exactly.
Like, you know, so I understand like all those questions. Like he's just trying to figure out who you are, you know, and I got to hang out with this dude for a while. Like, can I do it?
Exactly. You know? Well, and they were losing a very talented chef at the time, and he knew that that void was going to need to be filled by somebody who could handle it. So, you know, a lot of just, how are you under pressure? You know, and like I don't know if you've hung out with Eric Isaac much, but when I say he puts you under the eyebrow, like that intimidates a lot of people just because he's got such this like commanding presence, but all he wants you to do is just answer the question, you know, just and talk to him.
Right.
You know, so that's exactly what I did, you know, and I guess I said something right because for the first time in like a couple years, he actually stepped on the line for my first couple of weeks and trained me himself.
That's awesome.
It was like, and it was just so different because, you know, he's building sauces in a pan. He's dipping his finger in there. He's like, no, that needs more salt, you know, just taking you through. And it's just like, you know, some of these skills I hadn't learned yet. I had to fake it. Like flipping food in a pan was so intimidating to me. But you're looking around and everybody's doing it. You're not going to be like, is there a way to practice that at home?
You're certainly not going to tell anybody that you can't do it.
No, you're going to grab the pan and you're going to try to do it, you know, and then eventually you get it. You know, it's all about that confidence we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
But they were doing so many amazing things that I hadn't seen before, and it was just like being pushed into a whole new, like, you know, when you're playing Mario and you beat one level, and then the whole next one is like underwater. You know, it's like totally different setting, totally different scenes, and it was amazing. But still with that same confidence of like, okay, I can do this. Like this is a personal limit that I set for myself, and now I've just burst through it. Yeah. So where do you set the next one? You know, and just love that kitchen, love the Isaacs. I mean, I owe a lot to them. They really took the time to teach me not just how to put something in a pan and make it taste good, but how to actually be a chef and a leader and talk to people and get the results that you want out of them without them thinking that you're an asshole.
Yeah, because there's an art behind it.
It really is.
Definitely an art behind it.
Absolutely.
And if you're not familiar with who the Isaacs are, the Isaacs were like the first restaurant in Argenta. Maybe not the first, but I guess their longest running, right? I mean, we're talking about Restaurant Capello, which is at the corner of it's Fifth and Main, right there in Argenta. Where Kevin and I, where we hang right now. But they've been there like 25 years, right?
I think we're going on 21 or 22.
Okay, yeah.
So it was them and Reno's were like the first ones on the block, and it was like I'm not sure who got there first. I think it was Capello, but it was only by like a couple weeks.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so I forget the story of how they ended up in that location, but their uncle owned the building at the time or something, so they came in and they said we're doing this, and they maxed out their credit cards. They went like all their chips in, to make this happen, and it worked.
It worked, yeah, and still open to this day. But there's another thing there that we didn't mention. So you're stepping into this kitchen as a chef. You're learning something, some different techniques, some stuff that you haven't done before. But it's an open kitchen,
right? Also something new. Yeah. So when you want to get angry and you want to scream and stuff like that, you got to be more reserved because you look over at the bar and there's 4 dudes sitting there drinking a beer and staring at you.
And they're just looking at you.
Yeah.
I think he's making my food right now.
Yeah, exactly.
What did he do?
Yeah, totally. And
there's another level of stress right there.
It really is until you get busy. And then it just seems like it's almost like a barrier goes up. You just stop caring what's happening out there and you're focusing on what's going on around you.
Yeah.
And kitchen communication, just how you're talking to your guys and just, all of the lingo, drop this, heard, how long, all of that is basically all you're saying. You don't have time to stop and cuss and, make it about yourself because you're a team at that point.
Yeah. And the dance begins.
Exactly.
It's 7th grade all over again.
Exactly. Sweaty palms aren't a thing around here.
Yeah. That's awesome. So this is what we're going to do, Kev. We're going to take a quick break and then we're going to get current and we're going to start talking about Drafts and Table and what you got going on now. And then we're going to talk about the future.
Love it.
All right, so we're going to be right back with Kevin Doroski here on Heaping Spoonful.
Stick around, guys.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of Heaping Spoonful. We at Benny Keith Foods enjoy talking about the food scene almost as much as we enjoy providing the top quality ingredients that help restaurateurs and chefs across the Mid-South create their magic. Now let's dive even deeper into the culinary world with your host, Chef Brian McFadden.
All right, folks, welcome back to Heaping Spoonful. We are sitting here with chef owner of Draft and Table here, Kevin Doroski. So, Kevin, we talked about a few things. We talked about how you came up and how you started cooking for your buddies. The last conversation we had, we talked about your experience, and you were at Capello for a while.
5 years for the first stint.
Yeah.
The last year of which I had managed to become the chef de cuisine.
Hell yeah.
So that was, behind the scenes more of like the ordering and the making sure that everybody's doing the correct prep and just more of a leadership role.
Gotcha.
And then I got an opportunity to be the executive chef at a country club back in Russellville. Now, mind you, I've already transplanted once. Like, we're in Little Rock now, and I've got a job in Little Rock, and now I've got this opportunity to go back to Russellville. And I was so done with Russellville at this point because, I got that first taste of being in a different city. Coming to Little Rock was a huge eye-opener for me. It was better, so the idea of sliding backwards, to be somewhere where like I worked so hard to get out,
right?
It was a little difficult to make that decision. Now, I will say on the plus side, this was the first time that I had interviewed for a job where I felt in control. Where it was like, okay, you guys need me. Like,
okay, yeah.
like I don't have to
Good
sit.
feeling.
Oh, it is, yeah. And I had a friend who gave great advice. He was like, you look, when they ask you how much you want, you look them in the face and you say the biggest number you can say with a straight face. And I tried to do that, but really you got to be reasonable too. So it took them 3 times, like 3 different offers to finally be like, okay, we're going to give you what you want. We need you. It was like, okay, like here we go. So had to shake the Isaac's hands and let them know thank you for everything and start this new venture. And that kitchen was terrible.
Oh.
There was no refrigeration on the line. You had to like literally step off the line and walk like a good amount of ways to get to the food that you're about to cook. And there was like a stove in the dish pit, like just none of it made sense. So, and there's no budget to work with. They spend it all on me. So I've got to come in and try to make this make sense with the equipment that you've got.
Right.
And so the first couple of weeks was trying to piece that kitchen together the way that it made sense, and you've got wonderful club members who are like, hey, like I'd be willing to invest a little bit of my personal money, just for you to have what you need to make this happen. So
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So you get like a low boy one day and, you get that set up and you're like, oh my God, this is perfect. This is revolution. And then you realize that low boy's there, but now you got to walk all the way in the dish pit to cook whatever you've got in there, so
right.
We need to get that stove in here and move that out. And we've never needed that, like get rid of it,
Yeah.
And it took a month to get everything set up the way that I could actually like feel confident in what I was putting out there. And in the meantime, everybody's excited because we got this shiny new chef, so you're not like, you don't have all the time in the world to figure that out because you're still very much like doing dinner service and stuff. And then the holiday season hit and I booked so many private parties and so many like lunches and put that menu together and we're killing it on the night. Like I brought them back like into the black just in those first 2 months on private parties alone. Nice. And it was just suddenly like, okay, like now we have a budget. Now we can start talking about like how to make things even better than what they are now.
Did they have an existing menu or did you put a new menu together or?
They had one, and the first thing that I did was just sit down with a couple of people that had been there for a while, and it's like, okay, like what are you throwing away? And what am I going to get completely crucified for if I try to take it off the menu?
Oh, yeah.
So what needs to stay, what needs to go? And
now, I've done some country club life before, and what I've realized in some country clubs, not all, but in some, it's not necessarily like a big cohesive menu. Like Capello, you know what you're getting. It's Italian food.
Yeah.
You go to the drafting table. It's a cohesive menu, But when you go to certain country clubs, it's like the members are like, all right, we're going to put this on the menu because like these members, they really like this. And it could be, I'm just speaking hypothetical. Like,
you're 100%
like a
right.
chicken parm and then a taco, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Was it a cohesive menu or was it a little bit all over the place? Or?
I tried to make it as cohesive as possible, but you're absolutely right. So one of the big fights that I had there was they had chicken tenders as like a dinner, like entree option. And I was like, I don't want to be that lowbrow. Like everybody loves a good chicken tender, but if you're coming in and you're sitting down and you're having dinner with your family, like you're going to order chicken tenders.
Yeah.
You're going to want to get a steak or something. So I moved the chicken tenders off of the dinner menu and put them onto like the app menu. And started pickle brining them instead of doing like the buttermilk that they were before. And people were like, these are amazing, but they're supposed to come with fries. Like, no, it's not an entree anymore. You want fries, I'll throw you some. But it's not an entree, it's an app.
Yeah.
And so that was a hill I was willing to die on. I was like, okay, like you see everything else that's on the entree list. Nothing is on the same level with chicken tenders. This is all elevated. So let's try to keep that,
Yeah, absolutely.
But every time I write a menu, it's basically just a collection of life experiences for me. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
You mentioned a chicken parm. You remember the first time you had one and like how it rocked your world. So you keep that memory in mind whenever you're coming up with that as one of your options,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm putting this rabbit on here because we grew up with it. I'm putting duck on here because, for one thing, this is the duck hunting capital of Arkansas, and people don't seem to appreciate eating it as much as they should, like I do.
Yeah.
So that menu, it was crazy because I was rocking the menu that they had first for the first couple of weeks with some minor improvements. And then there was one night where I was laying there in bed and I was trying to sleep, and the TV's already off, like you're just laying there in the dark. And then it was just like I had this like surge, and I just got up and I went down and just took out a notepad and just started writing. And then like within the next like 3 hours, I had the menu. And I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. Like this is everything that they still want, but this is also like this new and exciting stuff like for me to do. And then also here are some things that I know I can crush it whenever I make it.
Okay.
So that was that menu. And then what really changed everything was once I got established and once we had a budget and once I had proven myself to them, I'm not going to feed you anything you're not going to like.
Yeah.
I got to actually start using that kitchen as like my science lab.
There you go.
So you're reaching out to different fish purveyors, and you're like, wahoo, I've never heard of that. Like, give me 30 pounds. And then you've got that investment in it. Now you got to make it taste good enough that you can make that money back plus some.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it was just reaching out to all corners of the globe, finding new ingredients and new things that I hadn't heard of, and just, okay, here it is. How do we make it taste good?
Yeah.
So that was a big part of the learning process for me, was just being able to have that freedom to say, hey, I've never heard of that, or hey, this is something that I've only seen done on this. So what if we did it on here? And it was like, again, just couldn't miss. Like every time like we would try something, just like, oh wow, like that's fire,
Nice.
One of the things back in that day that I would do is just kind of research recipes for it and try to find out what they all had in common. So, if somebody's always putting shallots in there, then you should probably stick with the shallots. But if they're mixing up the sauces, this one's a white wine and this one's like a demi, like you've got room to explore, but those shallots are always there. So maybe we'll just keep them, every recipe you read.
Yeah.
And then it just, I was there for 2.5 years. I was there when COVID happened, and we had this huge facility, big bar, big ballroom, huge dining room. And they're like, you can only open to 20% capacity.
Jeez.
And these are country club members that pay their dues. So try telling them, like, sorry, you can't eat. We're 20% capacity. Well, no, I pay my dues.
Yeah, my dues are paid.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, but I can't have you get us shut down just because,
Yeah.
So we did the to-go only thing for a while, and that valet loop, like, was just stretched, like, all the way backed up, just with these, little old ladies with their masks on, just popping their trunk so you can put their to-go in it, and then, just kept rocking, and everything was going fine there. It was just, it was a constant uphill battle. Like, I felt like I was always on the back foot.
Yeah.
Like I'm doing the right thing, but I feel like I have to defend myself, or I feel like I have to explain myself a lot more than I should. Mm-hmm. Like, the reason we're doing this is because it's going to be better. Well, I don't know. We've never done that before. Exactly. Like, that's why we're going to start doing it.
Yeah.
And then got a call from Eric Isaac, and he had injured his hand because he was, they have a machine for making their pasta, and something happened. His chef coat sleeve got caught in there, and some of the working like mechanisms grabbed it and yanked his hand in there and like punctured it. And he was like, well, I'm not gonna be able to be on the line again for a while. I can't even hold a pan. But we need you.
He messed his hand up pretty good.
He did, but I mean, the guy's tough as hell too. So I mean, to say this hurt him, like, it must have really hurt him.
Yeah.
Because he's not going to admit it otherwise.
That phone call probably hurt him too.
It did, and I tried to make it as painless as possible, and then we got to, he reached out, he said, we're going to do this. And I was like, I'm here for it, man. You let me know what you need from me, and let's make it make sense. And then he calls back. He's like, oh, we're going to be okay. Like, it's what, just, never mind. All right, my heart's broken, but
Right.
but then, a month or two later, he calls and he's like, okay, like, for real, like, we got to do this. And I was like, okay, I'm there. Like, I mean, it's like your dad calling you and saying, I need you to come back and work for the company business,
Yeah.
I mean, that's like going back home.
Mm-hmm.
So by that time, they had a completely new staff, and nobody knew who the hell I was.
Right.
So you got to go in there and be like, I'm in charge now, guys. Hi. So starting back there, I had to literally work my way up the line. Instead of just taking the reins and just being like, you have to listen to me now, I wanted to prove to those guys, like, hey, when I tell you this is how we should do it, I know what the hell I'm talking about.
Yeah, and I'm going to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So started down on the fry station. That guy was new anyway and needed the training. So I'm like, I'm going to be here to help him, and you guys just keep business as usual.
Mm-hmm.
And then you catch somebody do something, you're like, hey, did you just put cream in that? Like, we're not supposed to do that, right? Right? You know? And then just worked my way up the line and showed them that I knew how to make every single dish the way that it was supposed to be made. You know, and it's just like, hey, I'm not just harping on you guys. Like, this is how this is supposed to be. That's why I'm here.
All right.
Until you get to the top of the line again, and then now suddenly when you're asking questions or whenever you're asking somebody to do something for you, they have a lot easier time doing it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
They're like, well, I mean, if he can do it, I can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And if he's gonna do it, we had Brad in here. Brad is here at the Capitol, and he said the same thing. He's like, man, you got to be there for your people, but you also have to show them, like, listen, not only can I do this, but I'm gonna do it with you.
Right.
Like, we're gonna do this together. And it's huge. It's huge.
You have to have that proving ground once in a while. You can't just get them started and say, all right, you guys got this, and then never set foot on the line again, because you have to constantly like reprove yourself. Like the night of Creed, we were down a cook, and it's my night off. But what do? Like, you show up and you grind with your guys. Like,
that's what you got to do.
That's a crew of Vikings rowing a ship, and if one guy's not there, then you're going to get off course. So you got to take up the oar, and you got to show them that you know how the grind goes. Like, I don't feel sorry for you guys. I know how busy it was that night. Yeah. Or, hey, I was there. I know we got crushed. Just that kind of mentality. But
absolutely. So now we're flashing forward. So how did you end up? So now we're still in Argenta. We're like 2 blocks away now. 2 blocks away from
getting closer.
Yeah. So did it start with Scott as being your regular? Is that how it?
So I knew Scott years before I came back to Capeo. Okay. And he always sat at the bar. Ruth was always there, his wife, and she's such a lovely person.
She really is, yeah.
She's one of my favorite people to talk to, just because she's so honest, but yet so sweet. Yeah. And then she's got that accent that just kind of like just totally,
Just want to listen to her talk.
Just want to listen. Yeah, exactly. So I knew them pretty well before I came back. And I knew Scott had alpha-gal, which meant that he couldn't have any mammalian meat. It had to have fins or feathers. And he's been coming into Capeo since they opened, and it's for the most part the same menu. It's the same food over and over. So he'd look over across from the bar and be like, just make me something that makes me feel like I'm on the coast of Italy. Or you're like, well, I've never been to the coast of Italy, but if I got some tickets, and once I get done with those, I'll throw something together for you.
Yeah.
So he knew that I had something. He knew that I could cook. Like he was happy to see me back there. And we kind of just picked up right where we left off, and just friends again. And once you're done shutting down the kitchen and cleaning up, you always just kind of belly up to the bar next to him and have a beer and just listen to his stories, because the guy's got the most interesting life.
He does, yeah.
So that's how the friendship started. And one night I ran a special that was a duck cacciatore, and I know you and I have got some things to talk about with duck cacciatore too, but. He came. He was at a table with some friends who were out of town and his wife, and he orders that, and he walks into the kitchen. Crosses that threshold like with his eyes like huge. He's like, "Is that your recipe?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "What are you doing Sunday?" I'm like, "Where are we going with this?" He's like, "How would you like to come over to my apartment and show me how to cook that? I want to know every step of the way what you did to make it taste like that." I was like, well, yeah, cool, no problem, And the thing about Scott is, while he's never like worked in a restaurant before, he has a very good understanding of food. He's eaten in Michelin star restaurants all over the world. He's been to places that you and I probably can't even pronounce. And eaten at restaurants there. So when he pays you a compliment like that, like it's a big deal.
It's huge, yeah.
Yeah. So of course you're going to show up. And I remember I put my chef coat on, and And, I was all pressed and, ready to impress. I thought it was going to be like a dinner party and you're just going to be basically the help, just don't speak unless spoken to kind of deal. I mean, and I knew Scott and we were friends, but I still didn't know what to expect from like who he was inviting.
Yeah.
You don't know who you're feeding. So you want to remain that professionalism. And then I show up and I've got all the ingredients in, my refrigerated cooler and, just all this stuff. And, start putting stuff together, and then I just look over and he's there, and he's like, these peppers, you want me to cut them up? And he just starts working. He's not there to just have you cook. He's there because he was sincere. He wanted to know how you did that.
That's awesome.
So he's in the kitchen with me, and we're putting this together, and I'm for the most part, like I didn't have to advise him too much. Right. You could just kind of just like when you get a kitchen guy who's got experience, you can say, well, just julienne that onion and do this, and they do it instead of holding it weird, and you're not having to teach him the little stuff. He had it already.
Yeah.
So we put that dish together, and it wasn't like I thought it was at all. It was an invitation to dinner at his house to sit at the table with everybody.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, that really kind of brought our friendship even closer together. And then, of course, we're sharing a bottle of wine or 3, or, or the beers that I snuck in that refrigerated cooler I was talking about, and so we had a couple of drinks, a couple bottles of wine, and we're talking, and he lives on the 3rd floor above drafting table.
Right.
But at the time, it was Cregan's. And we got to the conversation about Cregan's, and I was like, man, like, I don't really go there. And he's like, I don't either. He's like, there's tons of places on this street. He's like, but the one restaurant that's like right below me, he's like, I don't like going in there.
Yeah.
And little back history on Cregan's, they started off on the right foot.
Oh, yeah, they started off fantastic.
They were amazing. It's an Irish pub. Like, what a gimmick. Everybody loves going to an Irish pub.
Absolutely.
The food was on point, and it was kind of true to Irish cuisine, and then they have this beautiful bar, and then they have these little what do they call them, snugs everywhere.
Yeah.
It was very, very well done, and then at some point, like, it just wasn't anymore.
Yeah.
It just seems like it was that shiny new toy on Christmas that meant everything to that kid when he opened it, but then it just gets shoved to the bottom of the toy box and not really played with anymore.
Yeah.
So
Unfortunate.
So I was talking to him about that, and I said, hey man, I was like, what if we took over that space? What if we did a restaurant? And he's like, no, we can't do that. And I was like, okay. And he was like, but if we did, we could do it like this. And I'd be like, yeah. If we did it though, I want it to be like this, and then we get, more passionate into the conversation. And then suddenly it's like, when we do this, like we're going to do it like this, and when we do this, and of course, like I said, it was a night of fun and just revelry. We had fantastic duck cacciatore that Scott and I had made. We had those bottles of wine, just kind of chalk it up to a great night, and then you don't bring it up again, But Scott's still coming into Capeo regularly. You're still seeing him, and you're just, hey, don't forget about that idea, Yeah. Well, about 3 weeks later, I get a phone call from him, and we're sitting on the patio at Cregan's, and he's like, okay, here's what I'm going to offer. And he had given it a tremendous amount of thought, like after I left that night. I thought it was just, we were just having a piss, but
Right.
Here he is, like he's got numbers and he's got ideas and he's got pen and paper, and he said, this is what I want to do. And hell yeah, I'm in. Yeah, this is my dream come true. Like, yeah. Scott's a brother to me. I mean, he and I were not just this project. We were close before it, but I love that guy. So, you're not, and you get this probably more than other people do, but you're never going to get to the point where you have the ability to open a restaurant by just grinding on a kitchen line.
Yeah.
I mean, for the most part, we're trying to make it. We're just trying to make our car payment so that we can drive to work.
Yeah.
But you also don't want to just jump in bed with somebody because you see that opportunity. Like, you always want to make sure that that's somebody that you trust.
Yeah, for sure.
Or somebody who understands what they're talking about, understands what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And like, Scott was that person for me. It was like, okay, if I was going to do this, then it's going to be with him.
Yeah.
Because he's a brilliant businessman, but he's also got this understanding of food. So when I tell him, hey, that's not possible because of this. Like, he understands, you know, he's not gonna be like, well, just do it anyway because, you know, my wife likes it, you know? So we started that conversation, and then it was like, okay, here we go. You know, we're jumping into this. And was still at Capello at the time, and, you know, was just still working my ass off there. But at the time, you know, you're still coming up with these ideas, and you're still, you're thinking about your menu and kind of daydreaming every once in a while.
Writing everything down. And, trying stuff on your time,
Yeah. And then we finally got to the point where it was time to shake the Isaac's hands again and go out and get this done. And had a really, really solid conversation with Eric, you know, before I left. And the guy's a robot, you know, so he hardly ever shows any emotion. But that conversation that I had was probably like the deepest and like best conversation I'd ever had with him. Okay. You know, like it was like finally like being real instead of that, you know, that business as usual conversation.
Right.
We're open, you know.
Yeah.
So then it was a grueling like year of cleaning up that place and monitoring the construction and ordering all of the flatware, picking out plates, you know, all of that stuff going on. And at the time, it was just like, wow, you know, it felt like it was so much time.
Yeah.
But no, like there is no such thing as so much time when you're opening a restaurant. Like once, you know, you're trying to crunch everything in. And also in the interim, like I wanted to be stronger at front of house stuff and understand, you know, serving and things that I hadn't really really done as a job before. So I did some moonlighting at Mockingbird Tacos, being a server, and having an understanding of what's going on in the kitchen just makes you so much stronger as a server.
Oh, man, yeah, it's great. I love like people that work in the kitchen that have like turned to servers, and you know, like. For sure, you know. I hope none of my cooks hear that, but I don't want them doing it. But yes, because you have an understanding of the menu, you know how everything's prepared, you can answer all those questions.
Yeah, and having the confidence when somebody asks you a question, hey, is that gluten-free? Well, let me go ask the chef. You know, when you can look them dead in the eye and be like, I know for a fact that it is because we cook it like this, you know. That goes a long way. It saves a lot of steps. It saves a lot of time. It also gives the guest like a way better experience because like, wow, this guy knows what he's talking about. He made great recommendations. So very thankful to Johnny Campbell for allowing me to kind of come in, and it was a huge learning experience for me, and doing some of their front of house management and learning the toast system and things like that. That's all credited to that experience right there, and awesome. It was awesome. And then finally came time to crunch time, and I'm simultaneously like going through a divorce and opening a restaurant, like. My divorce was finalized on the day of our soft opening. Like,
that's crazy.
It was, the timing was nuts, but having the restaurant to focus on while going through that, you know, there's some days where you just want to lay around in bed and watch movies and not do anything, but you can't because you still have so much to do. Yeah. Like having that to push me out the door or that to focus on, like actually really helped get through all of that.
Yeah.
You know, and just, plus, I got a kick-ass son. Let's face it. Like
you do have a kick-ass son.
Yeah, so I mean, just him being understanding and being there and you know being able to go through that without you know having any struggles or any issues. You know that was very, very important too.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, like I didn't give a damn before I had a kid. There wasn't anybody to impress. You're a kitchen rat. You know. But then when you have a kid and you want them to be proud of you, and you want to make sure that what you're doing is something that they can say, hell yeah, you know, my dad's a chef.
Yeah.
It makes you push through those personal boundaries again. That makes you go harder. It makes you try even more. And very thankful for that because there's no way any of us would be having a job at Drafting Table if I didn't have Pepper to impress.
Yeah, that's awesome. And he's going to listen to that one day. He's like, oh, yeah, that's right.
No, he did that for me.
Yeah. And he'll say that too.
Yeah.
He'll be like, yeah, that's my dad.
And, you know, I try to teach, you know, he's about to be 7 and, you know, he's his attention span because of all the video games and stuff that he plays. It's not there for a kitchen line yet, but I want him to have the experience. I want him to learn. Do I want him to be a chef? Like, not necessarily, you know, because it's a tough road. Mm-hmm. But just I want him to be able to cook because, like I said, that's how you tell somebody you love them. you know, or that's how you impress a girl on a first date, or that's how, you know, you that's how you get somebody to understand you a little bit better. And I want that for him. But there's no telling what that kid's going to get into. He'll be good at whatever he does, but I want him to have the fundamentals and basics of knowing how to cook.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm kind of that way with my kids too. It's like I want them to learn how to cook. I want them to be comfortable in the kitchen. Do I necessarily want them to work in the restaurant business? I don't know. You know, maybe while they're going to school for something else.
Right,
I don't
right.
know. And it's crazy for us because the business, as grueling as it is, it's been so good to us. You know, but it's like I don't know if I want to put my kids through that. You know, because it's a lot.
It is, yeah. I mean, truth be told, you want them to have a job where they're just traveling the world and partying all the time and meeting new people and getting new experiences, because this life is nothing but a collection of experiences, and you got to make sure you get some good ones. Yeah. And you're not going to do that standing in the same spot 12 hours a day in a musty kitchen, you know?
Yeah, true.
But there is still a lot to be learned from that setting that you need, that have helped me grow as a person just in normal life too, that I need them to get those lessons. But you're in a unique position because you have twins, and they're not like exact polar opposite personalities, but they are both like pretty different.
Yeah, for sure.
So do you see like more talent or more of a drive for the kitchen life out of one versus the other?
Yeah, Oliver asks a lot more questions when I'm in the kitchen. You know what I mean? And, you know, I got him doing some stuff. Oliver can make like a kick-ass grilled cheese right now. Nice. And, you know, my boys know how to bread their own chicken, you know, that kind of stuff. And, you know, he's eking, but when I'm over there, he's always like, Dad, why do you do that? Or why do you do this? Well, you do this because it sucks the moisture out of it. You know, we're going to salt this so all the moisture comes out of it and that kind of stuff. So he always asks those questions. Evan's like, when's food going to be ready? Just tell me. Oliver, stop asking questions so the food gets done
we
faster.
Can be done. Yeah.
But, yeah, so I think if either one of them, it'll be Oliver. He's more of the food. It's funny because he's picky, you know. He's picky, but at the same time, I mean, he knows what he likes, you know. I don't know.
You might have a front of house and a back of house on your hand.
True, it could be like the Isaacs. Yeah, it could be like the Isaacs. You never know. You never know. So now we're at drafting table. So we talked about the rabbit ragu, but my wife and I were in because we went to the James Taylor concert, and we happened to come into your spot beforehand. So the Reuben rolls.
Yes.
Dude, those Reuben rolls are fire.
They are. And it's that was a wacky idea whenever I was first thinking about it, because I wanted to scrub the Irish pub off of it, but I still wanted to pay some sort of homage. You know, like I wanted a Reuben, but I also didn't want a Reuben, you know? Yeah. So I came up with this idea to make these dippable sticks that with Reuben in there. Not like a Reuben egg roll, but just like, you know, something that they can just grab and dip. And so that was the original idea. But then when we get in there and we're using this wonderful pastrami, and we've got this lacy Swiss cheese, and we've got this sauce that we make in house that we're putting in there. You go to roll this thing up, and it's fat. You know, it's not just grab and dip. You know, so I was just like, you know, this tastes amazing, but I just wish it was easier to eat.
Right.
So then, you know, we're not soft opening yet, but we are like trying out recipes and stuff. And we got a group that's coming in just to kind of, you know, try some stuff. And I was like, you know, it'd be easier if I just cut this up for them. And then after I did, I was like, that looks like a sushi roll. Yeah. I was like, what if we plated it like that? But instead of having like the crab salad or whatever to be the garnish, let's just put the kraut there. Yeah. Because, I mean, for one thing, I didn't want to heat up the kraut too much, because once it gets past 200 degrees, you don't get the same benefits out of it. You know, you want it to be not cold, but not hot either. So I was like, this is perfect, because you put the kraut on the plate, and then you put you take these little slices of roll and fan them out like a sushi roll, and then you can kind of drizzle more of that sauce on top. Now it is aesthetically pleasing. It's easy for a group to eat, and it's just amazing. You know, like it was a really dumb idea that turned into a really good idea.
Those are the best ones.
Exactly.
The best ones.
Yeah.
So like I always do this like with everybody. I'm like, you're at your restaurant. Like if I were going to be like, all right, listen, dude, my buddy's coming in. He doesn't even want to see a menu. He's coming in for dinner. Like walk him through that experience. Like I want like the drink. I want the app, you know, whatever the app may be, and dinner and dessert. Like what what if somebody's walking into your restaurant right now and they're like, we don't have menus, chef's just gonna make. What do you? Yeah.
So I get asked that a lot by people, especially doing more front of house stuff lately, touching tables and talking to people. They say, well, what's your favorite? Well, these are all my children. I wrote that menu. I don't really have favorites. I've got different moods.
Yeah.
There may be like, I could probably eat the French onion soup every single day.
It's a banging. Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, I don't, because you get different moods, and so the first question I ask them is, how hungry are you? Like that narrows it down to are we sticking to light stuff so that you can get out and go to a show, or do you have time to really sit here and revel in what we're about to do? So for me, I'm a beer drinker. I don't drink a lot of heavy alcohol unless it's one of those nights where I got to go to Four Quarter and hang out with you or something.
Right.
I typically stick to beer, but beer's very filling as well. So if you're trying to spare yourself some room for the food, we've got a really good old fashioned,
Heck yeah.
made with Gentleman Jack. That's outstanding. I'm not even a big like whiskey or bourbon drinker, but I love that we're doing that. The frozen drinks, which was another crazy idea that we had that ended up paying off. There's always something delicious in there, and if it's hot outside, I'm definitely going for one of those.
Oh yeah.
You got to start with the armadillo eggs.
That's right, the armadillo eggs.
I know that they're not up your alley. You don't do a whole lot of spicy, but these are something that a long, long time ago, a buddy of mine showed me how to make his version of those. And I was like, dude, this is incredible. Like, this is so dumb, but it's so good.
Yeah.
So then I moved up to Montana years later after that and was trying to impress a girl and enter this barbecue competition. Had no idea what I was getting myself into. It's just a bunch of like rowdy Canadians with their $50,000 smoker trailers.
Yeah.
And then I'm just rolling up in my mom's Blazer with my Walmart smoker. They're like, oh, this guy.
Yeah.
But then the chef's choice was the day before, and then all of the barbecue was like the next day. So we did the chef's choice challenge just on that Walmart smoker, and I put together those, like my new version of those armadillo eggs, which is fresh grilled jalapeno stuffed with cream cheese, and then you make a sausage and cheese breading to wrap around it, roll it in some panko, and smoke them. So I'm explaining to the judges what I'm putting together, and this one woman's like, well, where's your huckleberry? I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, well, this is Montana. Like, this is huckleberry season, so the chef's choice challenge like has to include huckleberry. And I was like, well, nobody told me. And then like I'm racking my brain and I'm trying to figure it out. And my mom had already embraced the Montana scenery, and she had actually gone hiking and harvested like huckleberry because they only grow wild. You can't domesticate them, and bears love them, so it's super dangerous to get them. But she had already done all of that for me and canned it and made huckleberry jam. And she's like, I have an idea. Maybe like you mix this with the cream cheese and put it inside. And it was just like, okay, like maybe. So we did that, and it was incredible. Like, it was just like a whole new, like, so you've got your spicy, you've got your savory, you've got your crunchy, like you've got all of this going on, but there's no sweet. And then suddenly this jam mixed with the cream cheese just takes that full ride for you. Yeah. So now it represents everything, And so I'd started doing that and mixing the jam with the cream cheese and stuffing them inside. But for one thing, it wasn't very aesthetically pleasing. Like it just the jam mixed with the cream cheese on the inside just kind of like it melts a little bit more and starts kind of spewing out the sides and things.
Okay, yeah.
So you wanted to just stick with the cream cheese in the middle. So whenever I put these on this menu, I was like, I want to stick with that berry and cream cheese theme. But clearly, like, huckleberry is not going to be a readily available ingredient. So I went to the next best thing I thought, which was blackberry.
Heck yeah.
And started making that blackberry cream sauce that we just kind of like, pastry style, like drizzle on top of them.
Right.
And then there you go. Like now I have to have somebody on staff like that just strictly rolls armadillo eggs because we can't keep them in stock. It's those are definitely where you start. You can't go wrong with either of the soups. The duck and potato chowder is really stick to your ribs.
Had it for the first time last week because I normally get the French onion soup, but I was like, you know what? Let me try the chowder.
Yeah,
freaking delicious.
They're both winners, man. I'm proud of both of them. And French onions is as true to classic as you get. You know, it takes like 5 hours to make it. And you don't just let any prep guy do that. That's one that you always like, all right. Like if it's not done and, you know, Jeff's not there, I'll come in and do it.
I'll do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you got to have either one of those. I mean, I gun to the head, I couldn't pick, you know. If you're going for a salad course, you know, one of my favorite salads, and it's kind of slept on, is you know when you go to like an Asian restaurant and they've got that simple salad with that super dank ginger dressing.
Yes.
So we've got one of those as a side salad, and it's like my favorite. And it's so simple. There's hardly anything in there except for just like the greens and stuff. But that dressing just makes it. Like it just sends it over the top. But that one, or the farm stand salad's got everything that you would want from a farmer's market on it. It's delicious. Throw some chicken on there, and it's just completely.
That's what my wife had the last time she was in. Yeah, she loved it.
I love it. The goat cheese too. It's the only cheese in the world that's healthy for you. People don't realize that. It's fantastic. And then as far as entrees go, man, we're killing the game on steaks right now.
Oh, yeah.
We've partnered with David's Butchers, which is their facilities 3 miles away.
Oh, yeah.
Incredible quality product. They're dry aging it for 28 days for us. I mean, so can't go wrong with a steak. And so 9 times out of 10, when I ask Pepper what he wants for dinner, it's steak and mac and cheese. So I took him on a bit of this, like, you know, this journey where I was like, okay, like, I know you like Kraft, the blue box, but like, let's see what we can like actually make together from scratch. And tried all different cuts of pasta, you know, showed him how to make a Mornay, and then how you can just put whatever kind of cheese you want.
Yeah.
You know, that's the beauty of it. But the one that he would actually pick over Kraft, the one thing that we did that he was like, that's awesome and I love it, like surprisingly, was the broccoli and white cheddar orzo.
Ooh.
He loved that. And
Heck
yeah, so that was something that whenever I was putting the menu together, I was like, steak and mac and cheese for Pepper, but we're going to do a really nice cut of steak.
Yeah.
And we're going to do this broccoli and cheddar orzo. And then at the beginning, we were serving it with sauteed mushrooms, but I kept running out of mushrooms. Like, we couldn't keep it in stock. So we switched that to the crispy Brussels, and nobody's missed the mushrooms, even though they were outstanding. Like, these Brussels sprouts have just completely taken over.
Heck yeah.
The duck coda I named after my little brother. That's a solid dish. It's a duck confit, but I don't tell people that because, again, we're here in Arkansas, and like the duck that people eat here have just been flapping their wings the whole time, and so the breasts are tough, and it's a little bit gamey. So growing up, the duck hunters that I knew, they would do one thing with it. They'd take the breast, put it in a jalapeno with cream cheese, wrap it in bacon, and throw it on the grill. Like it was almost like you were only limited to doing that.
Right.
So when I brought the duck idea up, I wanted to do something that people were familiar enough to not be scared to order it, but also be something that stayed like traditional and true to what it should be.
Gotcha.
So we got the leg and thigh quarters instead of the breast, and we confit it, and it's just like, I mean, crispy on the outside, but fall apart tender on the inside. I kept the cream cheese stuffed pepper, but now we're using a poblano, and we roast that off.
Hell yeah.
The wild rice is already in a duck's diet, so that's clearly like an easy win for your bed. And then, you know, I take applewood smoked bacon crumbles, and that goes on top. And then we also do a blackberry demi. And it's like, okay, so here's your duck, here's your cream cheese stuffed pepper, there's your bacon. Like, you know you like this combo already, but it's just presented a little bit different. You know?
Yeah.
So that one I named after my little brother, Dakota. And it's just that was another gamble. I wasn't sure how well that was going to sell, but it takes off, and it's doing really well. So
Awesome.
I would say if somebody's trying to be a little bit adventurous, like, instead of just sticking to something you can get, you know, at another restaurant, just slightly different, just get something that you cannot find anywhere else. That would be my recommendation.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And yeah, a different spin on duck too, with, like you said, because I see it all kind of the same, you know, a lot of different places. Yeah. So it's a good spin on it. And I don't think there's a whole lot of people doing like confit properly, you know, around here. So
You know what feedback I get a lot before people order it? They're like, "Well, it's not greasy, is it? It's not greasy," because of that thing. Like you said, they're not doing it right. Like these people are like clearly just boiling it in duck fat instead of just kind of like braising it off in a.
Right.
So you always have to remind people, no, it's not going to be greasy. I don't know where you had it before, but like now you're here and I got you. It's going to be okay.
I promise you.
Yeah.
I'll be your Sherpa.
Exactly. Yeah. It turns out I do know a thing or two about cooking this duck, so it's not going to be greasy.
Now, what about dessert?
Oh my God! So the one that I never miss on, the one like if somebody's undecided, you can always tell them, get the chocolate and sea salt caramel creme brulee. It's killer. And that was another one where one thing that people might not realize with me being close with you and me being close with the Isaacs and me having so much love for Argenta is I do not rip anything off of anybody else's menu. Like if somebody else is already doing something, then that's out automatically. Like we're not going to do that. We're not copycats, and we're certainly not going to piss anybody off in the neighborhood because it's high tides rise all ships, like you've said 100 times. Like and Argenta is very much a borrow a cup of sugar kind of neighborhood.
Absolutely.
So with Capello having their white chocolate creme brulee, like I was like flat out, no creme brulee. Like I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Until we came up with this one. And then it was like, it's not white chocolate. It's not vanilla. This is something they're not doing. It's totally different, but it's still a creme brulee. So we do the milk chocolate creme brulee. And then when we first tried it, we were like, that's good, but it's so sweet and it's so rich. Like it needs a little bit of a balance. And working in the test kitchen before we did this, like that was, one of the things we put together. And then it was like, but wait, like what if we did this? And we took some caramel and we drizzled that on there. And then we took some sea salt and like sprinkled that onto the top. And that sea salt kind of like balances out so much like the overly sweetness of it. Then again, there's your full ride again.
Yeah.
So you that's a like can't miss. But if it's somebody special, if it's your buddy and we're trying to like really knock his socks off, my girlfriend is actually like part-time kind of pastry chef. She pops in on Thursdays when she can. She's terrific. Like she's a really, really like talented baker.
Very talented.
And so if she comes up with an idea and she's put something together, then that's what I'm going to push people to. Like you guys, you got to try this. Yeah. Like and it's never the same. It's like, oh, well, she's got a tres leches this week, but next week, I don't know. She was talking about doing something crazy with a pumpkin roll. Like, who knows?
Last time we were talking, she made this killer key lime pie.
Yes. Yeah. And she's incredibly talented, but she's still like, she doesn't have this hubris, like where she just walks in and is like, I know what I'm doing.
Oh no, she's totally humble. Yeah.
She's just got this like, well, I don't know. Like I might be able to do this. And I'm like, I know damn well you're going to pull this off. Like
she's definitely that person. She's like, I don't know if this is going to work or not. And then you're like, really?
Really?
Shut up.
Yeah, exactly. All the times where like you felt self-conscious about a dish that you're putting together, like she should never have that. And she always has that.
Yeah.
So it's fun working with her too and seeing her in the kitchen and stuff. And, she makes me really happy, in life and in the dessert world. So, shout out to Emma Frishy. She's killer.
Rock on, Emma.
Yeah.
Killing it.
Yeah.
Killing it.
So
She always will too.
Yeah.
Oh man, dude, I cannot thank you enough for coming in today.
Dude, thank you for having me. This really has been like a hangout sesh that you and I would have anyway, but now we got mics in our faces.
Yeah. Normally it's 4/4. And I think 4/4 bar has come up on every single one of my podcasts so far.
Okay, well,
it's kind of like the
that's the nucleus of Argenta.
The nucleus, yes.
And when people are, from out of town and they're asking me at the restaurant for recommendations, I say the same thing over and over. I say, listen, it doesn't matter where you start. Just know you're going to end up at 4/4.
Yeah.
Like just accept that right now and you'll be a lot better off.
And and we just plan the night for you.
Yeah.
It's easy.
Yeah.
It's easy.
Yeah. Look, I mean, Conan's got it all figured out over there. It's a dive, but you still feel safe, like it's not dingy or dirty. Like it's just got that right amount of like, just divey feeling.
Yeah.
And just the bartender's super cool all the time. And you can tell that like Conan's doing the right thing because of like the longevity of the people that are there.
Oh yeah.
Like he has a very devoted following in his staff, and I always look for that, and I think he's crushing it. So
Absolutely.
I got no problem going there and grabbing a beer.
Shout out to Bubba and Holly.
Yes,
Rock and
Bubba
roll.
and Holly, love y'all.
Brian in the kitchen. Lewis. I think those are all the guys that I know. I think.
Lewis is the guy with the headphones.
That's Mikey.
Mikey. Yeah.
Skinner. Mikey Skinner.
Doesn't talk a lot, but I got a lot of
He's a
respect
good
for that
dude.
guy. Yeah.
He's a music head too. Well, awesome, man. And we're gonna do this again about a year from now. All right, and then we're gonna see where we're both at then.
Love
We'll
that.
just kind of take it from there.
Love it.
All right, everybody. Thank you for listening to Heaping Spoonful. You can find us the first and third Tuesday of every month on any streaming platform. Spotify, Pandora, Apple, whatever. Just Google it and it'll pop up. I promise you that. Thank you, Kevin, for being here today.
And thank you.
Absolutely, man. Great having you. I'd like to thank Rusty Mathis, the general manager over here. This is this is Rusty's baby, and I'm just a squirrel in his world. It's a great platform to have over here. Something that we've always wanted to do, telling stories from great chefs. Really like to thank Rob Nelson. Rob, can't thank you enough, buddy. Appreciate everything that you do. And all right, folks, if you're interested in being on the show, feel free to hit us up. You can find all the contact information out there on Google. I'm Brian McFadden, and there's another episode of Heaping Spoonful.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Heaping Spoonful. On behalf of all of us at Benny Keith Foods, Mid-South Division, please know how much we love connecting you with the legends of the culinary scene and their unique stories. I look forward to the next time we can offer you another Heaping Spoonful.